Have you ever experienced that even when external noise subsides, peace does not come within the mind? After a day's fatigue, when everything should be calm, thoughts still do not stop. The mind sometimes gets entangled in the past, sometimes starts worrying about the future. We want peace, but the more we try to grasp it, the more restless the mind becomes. This is a very common but profound human problem. The Nadabindu Upanishad begins its discourse from here. This Upanishad does not say to forcibly silence the mind. It also does not say to fight with thoughts. According to Vedanta, the nature of the mind is not just to think, but to remain in constant motion. And where there is motion, there is sound in some form or another. This inner sound is called nada by the Upanishad. This nada is the path through which the mind can be understood, not suppressed. In the Nadabindu Upanishad, Omkar is not seen merely as a chant or pronunciation. Here, Omkar is explained as the entire structure of consciousness. Akar, Ukar, and Makar are not separate sounds, but indications of different directions of consciousness. When the mind runs outward, these appear only as words. But when the attention turns inward, these Akar, Ukar, and Makar become the means to understand the movement of consciousness. The Upanishads present Omkara as a bird. Akar and Ukar are its wings, Makar is its tail, and Ardhamatra is its head. This does not mean that an imagination is being created. It means that consciousness is not static. It is constantly on a journey. But this journey is not towards the outside world. This journey is inward, towards its own original source. When consciousness turns in this direction, true meditation begins. In this very first stage, the Nadabindu Upanishad makes it clear that peace is not an emotional pleasure. Peace is the state where the mind begins to become calm without any pressure. There is neither conflict nor force. Only due to understanding does the mind let go of its unnecessary movement. This is the establishment of the Pranava principle. It is from this understanding that the path of further practice opens, where sound gradually stabilizes in consciousness, and consciousness settles into its true form. When peace is glimpsed within for the first time, a natural question arises in the mind of the seeker. Where has this peace come from? How is it happening within? Is it merely an experience of a few moments? Or is there a definite sequence working behind it? The Nadabindu Upanishad advances this curiosity and clarifies that this calming of consciousness is not accidental. Behind it, a deep and orderly structure of Omkar is active. The Upanishad makes it clear that Omkar is not a single straight or static sound. It is a journey of consciousness that manifests in different states. To understand this journey, it is necessary to see Akar, Ukar, and Makar, not just as pronunciations, but as directions of consciousness. When this vision becomes clear, meditation practice moves out of confusion towards stability and clarity. The sound Akar represents the first clear movement of consciousness. It is the state where the mind remains active and flows outward. Thoughts are rapid, experiences are numerous, and concentration seems difficult. The practitioner feels that stopping the mind is impossible. The Nadabindu Upanishad says an important thing here. This is not a failure. It is a natural initial state of consciousness. The experience of Akar indicates that the practice has begun in the right direction. Ukar is the second state of consciousness. Here, the mind is neither completely outward nor fully stable inwardly. It is a transitional state. The practitioner experiences that the intensity of thoughts is decreasing, but they have not completely ceased. Sometimes there is peace, and sometimes restlessness returns. The Upanishad indicates that this is the stage where patience is most necessary, because it is at this point that consciousness learns to turn inward. Makar reveals the third and more stable state of consciousness. Here, the movement of the mind slows down. Thoughts do come, but they do not take hold. The practitioner experiences a stillness emerging within. According to the Nadabindu Upanishad, this is the state where meditation practice ceases to be just an effort and begins to become an experience. Here, consciousness for the first time loosens its external supports. The Ardhamatra mentioned above these three states is not an extension of any sound. It is a state beyond sound. Here, neither Akar remains clear, nor Ukar, nor Makar, but consciousness remains fully awake. The Upanishad describes this as a state of peace, depth, and dissolution. It is the moment when the mind stops trying and naturally becomes calm. The Nadabindu Upanishad then mentions the 12 arts of Omkara. The purpose of these arts is not to memorize names. Their purpose is to show that consciousness does not transform in a single moment. It gradually becomes subtler. As the practice deepens, consciousness moves away from gross experiences and enters subtler experiences. For this reason, this journey is gradual, not sudden. Here the Upanishad gives a very calm but decisive indication. The state in which consciousness becomes steady is what becomes its truth. This is not about the future or any other world. It is about the present, this very moment. The level at which the practitioner recognizes themselves is their actual state. Therefore, the Upanishad speaks not of external goals, but of inner steadiness. The knowledge of Akar, Ukar, and Makar is not just for understanding. It is meant to guide the practice. When the practitioner begins to recognize the state of the mind, meditation becomes effortless. This is where the true practice of Nad Yoga begins, where sound ceases to be a mere practice and instead becomes a natural path that leads consciousness inward. When consciousness begins to stabilize by transcending the states of Akar, Ukar, and Makar, a deeper question arises within the practitioner. If peace is manifesting within, then at what level are this world, this body, and these actions true? Are they all truly bonds, or does their effect simply end by changing the way of seeing? The Nadabindu Upanishad leads the practitioner to its most subtle yet decisive teaching at this very point. The Upanishad says that the ultimate form of consciousness is the Supreme Brahman. It is neither a distant entity nor an object to be attained. The Supreme Brahman is the state where consciousness remains established in its own form. Here, there are no boundaries, nor any distinctions. The movement of the mind becomes completely still, and what remains is pure, expansive, and immaculate consciousness. In this context, the Upanishad discusses karma and Prarabdha, destined actions. From a common perspective, it appears that life is driven by actions. What is happening is Prarabdha, and what will happen is the result of karma. But the Nadabindu Upanishad clarifies that this view remains effective only until self-knowledge is revealed. After the dawn of knowledge, The bondage of karma becomes like the effect of a dream ending upon waking. The Upanishad illustrates this truth with a simple example. In the darkness, seeing a rope, one is mistaken to think it is a snake. The fear seems real, and so does the reaction. But as soon as there is light and the knowledge of the rope arises, the snake disappears on its own. No effort is needed to remove it. Similarly, when consciousness recognizes its true nature, the effects of karma and destiny automatically become weak. The Upanishad here does not say that the body immediately ceases to exist. It explains that the understanding of the reality of the body and the world changes. The seeker does not consider them as truth, but only perceives them at the level of experience. Just as in a dream, the body appears to be functioning, but upon waking, it has no independent existence. Similarly, after knowledge, this body and the world appear, but they do not bind. The Nadabindu Upanishad presents a very balanced view at this point. The concept of Prarabdha, destiny, is useful in the state of ignorance because it does not allow one to escape from life. But when the knowledge of the truth fully manifests, even Prarabdha has no independent existence because the observer himself has changed. In this state, the practitioner does not separate from life. While living in life, they are not bound by it. Actions occur, experiences come, but no attachment forms within. There is neither a craving for pleasure nor a fear of pain. This state arises not from renunciation, but from clear understanding. Therefore, the Upanishads call it the natural fruit of pure knowledge. With this understanding, the practitioner enters the next stage of practice. Now meditation is no longer just the practice of becoming calm. It becomes the process of fully establishing consciousness within. It is here that the practical practice of Nad Yoga begins, where the inner sound is not merely an experience, but becomes a means to completely absorb the mind within. If this vision feels clear and meaningful to you from within, write Omkar in the comments below as your participation. And like this video so that this knowledge can reach those who are in search of inner peace. When it becomes clear that bondage is not external, but in the way of seeing, a natural transformation begins to occur within the practitioner. Now meditation is no longer merely a matter of understanding. From within, there arises the realization that a practical method is needed to stabilize consciousness. The Nadabindu Upanishad presents the practice of Nad Yoga at this very point. Here, the Upanishad does not create any mystery, but points towards a very simple and natural process. The Upanishad states that it is not necessary to cause pain to the body for Nad Yoga. The body only needs to be stable enough so that it does not become an obstacle for the mind. Siddhasana is mentioned for this reason. This posture provides natural stability to the body and also keeps the breath naturally calm. The purpose here is not to control the body, but to make the body such that consciousness can flow inward without obstruction. Along with this, the Upanishad speaks of the Vaishnavi Mudra. This does not mean the display of any external gesture. Its true meaning is that both the sight and the mind gradually begin to withdraw from external objects. When the eyes stop wandering here and there, the mind also begins to give up its restlessness. The Nadabindu Upanishad clarifies here that Nad Yoga is not achieved by suppressing the external senses, but by allowing them to naturally become calm. After this, the Upanishad talks about the hearing of the inner sound. This is not a sound coming from outside. It is the subtle sound that has always been present within, but does not come into experience due to the lack of meditation. When the practitioner sits quietly and allows the mind to detach from external sounds, this inner sound gradually begins to become clear. This sound captivates the mind. The Nadabindu Upanishad explains that with practice, the influence of external sounds diminishes. The practitioner experiences that the sounds of the world are unable to enter within. This is not a forced solitude. It is a natural inwardness. The mind itself withdraws from outside and begins to immerse in the sound that is continuously flowing within. The Upanishad here gives a very subtle indication. The mind does not need to be taken elsewhere. Where the mind first rests on the sound, nada, it learns to become steady there. Gradually, the distinction between the mind and the sound begins to fade. The mind starts to dissolve into the sound, just as milk dissolves in water. In this state, no additional effort is required. This process of Nada Yoga does not happen suddenly. Initially, the sound is experienced in a gross form. With practice, it becomes subtle. The practitioner's task is only to keep the attention steady on the subtlest sound. One should neither grasp the gross nor forcibly seek the subtle. One must let the consciousness remain steady in whatever naturally appears. In this way, Nada Yoga gradually calms all the activities of the mind. Thoughts begin to loosen, desires become weak, and a deep peace starts to establish within. The Nadabindu Upanishad considers this state not as an achievement of practice, but as the natural result of practice. From here onwards, Nada begins to lead the mind towards a transcendental state, where the mind itself leaves behind its limitations. When the mind gradually begins to stabilize through the practice of Nad Yoga, the practitioner experiences a clear transformation within. Earlier, when the mind used to repeatedly run towards objects, now that same mind begins to settle within itself. This settling does not come from any pressure. It is the result of the natural rhythm generated with Nad. The Nadabindu Upanishad presents some very simple yet profound illustrations to explain this transformation. The Upanishad first gives the example of a bumblebee. Just as the bumblebee, while drinking nectar from a flower, does not pay attention to its fragrance, similarly, the mind attached to Nad is not attracted to external objects. Here, the mind is not restrained. The mind attains a subtler and deeper essence from it. When the inner Nad begins to become clear, external attractions naturally start to loosen. This detachment arises not from practice, but from experience. After this, the Upanishad gives the example of a serpent. The mind is described here as a serpent coiled inward, which by nature is restless and sharp. Just as a serpent is calmed by a sweet sound, similarly, the mind is controlled by the influence of sound. This control does not come from struggle. It comes from that sound which is in harmony with the nature of the mind. Therefore, Nad Yoga does not work against the mind, but works with the mind. The Nadabindu Upanishad further gives the example of a mad elephant. Just as an elephant wandering among objects is controlled by a sharp goad, similarly, the wandering mind is directed by Nad. Here, the meaning of the goad is not punishment. It means a clear path. Nad is that path which turns the mind from outward to inward. When the mind gets this direction, it begins to become stable by itself. The Upanishad also explains that the effect of nada is not limited to the surface layer of the mind. Just as the waves of the ocean calm down when they reach the shore, similarly, through the practice of nada, the inner waves of the mind gradually begin to calm. Thoughts arise, but they do not take hold. Desires arise, but they cannot bind. The practitioner experiences that a sense of witnessing is developing within. Here, the Nadabindu Upanishad clarifies a very important principle. As long as nada exists, the mind exists. And when even the rhythm of nada begins to cease, the mind naturally becomes calm. This does not mean the end of any external sound. It means that consciousness goes so deep with the help of sound that even the basis of words begins to dissolve. This is the moment when the practitioner moves from word to wordlessness. The Upanishad also cautions that the practitioner should not cling to any one sound. One should naturally progress from gross sound to subtle sound. If the mind settles on a particular sound, it should be allowed to remain steady there. If the sound changes, it should be allowed to change. The practitioner's task is only to prevent the mind from wandering in any other direction. In this state, the mind almost forgets the external world. This forgetfulness is not ignorance. It is the natural result of concentration. The Nadabindu Upanishad says that when the mind becomes absorbed in the sound in this way, it begins to merge into the space of consciousness. From here, the sound leads from the means to the goal. The Nadabindu Upanishad clarifies in this section that the purpose of Nada Yoga is not to suppress the mind. The objective is to bring the mind to its true state. When the mind finds rest in the nada, it abandons the race of objects. From this point onwards, the reliance on nada also gradually begins to fade, and the practitioner reaches the threshold of the Unmani State, where the mind itself lets go of its limitations. When even the support of sound, nad, begins to gradually fade away, the practitioner reaches a state where the mind's activity itself starts to calm down. Here, neither any effort of practice remains, nor any desire for a goal. The Nadabindu Upanishad calls this state Unmani. Unmani means a state beyond the mind. This is not a special experience, but rather the cessation of the limits of the experiencer. The Upanishad explains that when both Nad and Bindu synchronize, consciousness no longer depends on any sound, form, or thought. The mind, which until now was sustained inwardly by Nad, itself takes rest. Here, the mind is neither restrained nor practiced upon. The mind becomes calm by its own nature. This is the true indication of the Unmani state. In this state, the yogi's external life may appear normal, but there is no turmoil within. The Upanishad says that such a yogi seems as if dead, because the movement of reaction within him has ceased. Cold and heat, pleasure and pain, honor and insult, these dualities no longer touch him. This does not mean an escape from life. It means that life no longer binds him. The Nadabindu Upanishad describes this state as beyond the waking, dreaming, and deep sleep states. Here, consciousness does not enter any state. Rather, all states merge into consciousness. This is the fullness of the Turiya. Here, the observer and the observed do not remain separate. Consciousness becomes stable in itself. The Upanishad expresses this state in very calm words in its final verse. It says that where the vision becomes steady without any object to see, where the life force becomes calm without any effort, and where the mind remains steady without any support. That is the state of Brahman Pranava. Here neither the seeker remains nor the practice. Only the awareness of the true nature remains. This liberation is not an achievement of the future. It is not a fruit attained after death. The Nadabindu Upanishad clarifies that this state is possible in this very life. When the veil of ignorance is removed, consciousness reveals itself in its natural form. This is liberation while living.
In this final realization, the Upanishad gives no command. It only reminds that the one being sought is the seeker himself. Nad Yoga has only calmed the mind so that this truth can reveal itself. When the search ends, the question of attainment also ends. Here, the Nadabindu Upanishad completes its teaching. No insistence, no imposition of conclusions, only peace. That peace which does not come from effort, but arises from the dawn of understanding. This is the final message of the Nadabindu Upanishad. Peace is not outside, it is within. And within, it is not far away, but has always been present.
The teaching of the Nadabindu Upanishad is not a quest for any extraordinary experience. This Upanishad comes to make us understand that peace is not hidden somewhere outside. Peace manifests when the unnecessary movement of the mind itself begins to calm down. Nad Yoga points to this truth, where the mind is not fought against, but allowed to rest within. The core message of this Upanishad is very simple. The solution to the restlessness of the mind is not in effort, but in understanding. When the practitioner realizes that thoughts come and go, but consciousness can remain separate from them, only then does real transformation begin. The journey of Akar, Ukar, and Makar, the subtlety of Nad, and ultimately the state of Unmani. All these are not distant practices, but a natural process happening within.
The Nadabindu Upanishad clarifies that liberation is not an achievement of the future. It is not a fruit attained after death. Liberation means being established in your true nature right now, at this very moment. When the mind lets go of its limitations, consciousness becomes clear on its own. This is living liberation, and this is the ultimate teaching of this Upanishad. If, while listening to this entire subject, you have experienced that peace is not outside but within, then this understanding is not just for you. There are many people struggling with the restlessness of the mind, but unable to find the right direction. Therefore, if you found this video meaningful, please like it, so that this knowledge can reach those who are searching for it. You can share your thoughts in the comments below. If you wish, you can simply write Omkar to indicate that this topic is touching you deeply. This helps in advancing such serious and pure subjects. And if you want to continue understanding such calm, clear, and profound topics related to the Upanishads, Vedanta, and self-knowledge, subscribing to the channel will be beneficial for you. Here the goal is not numbers, but continuity, clarity, and depth. The Nadabindu Upanishad ultimately reminds us that truth is not far away. When the search becomes quiet, the truth reveals itself.
With this piece, we conclude this topic here and leave consciousness open for the journey ahead. With that spirit, carry the wisdom of the Nadabindu Upanishad in your heart and contemplate it in the silence of your own awareness. May this wisdom illuminate your journey inward and reveal the stillness that has always been present within.